Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Arthritis Action podcast. I'm Marc, your host for today, and for this episode, I'm joined by Vanya Spasova. Vanya is a postgraduate teaching assistant in physics and also one of our volunteers at the charity. So, hello, Vanya. Thank you for joining us.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. So today we're going to talk about something that we've touched upon in previous episodes, but I think it deserves a bit more attention. So it's going to get its own episode. So it's going to be the main focus today. So we're going to talk about how arthritis can affect your social life. So, but before we do that, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and your arthritis.
Oh, yeah, sure. So I was diagnosed back in my home country, which is Bulgaria, when I was 18 years old. So at that time, I was just about to graduate from high school. And also I was about to enter the music academy in Sofia, studying piano performance. So as you can imagine, that was quite life-changing for me because I was about to become a classical pianist, and I was really looking forward to becoming professional, like a professional performer, But however, I started experiencing symptoms. People were quite confused because I did not have a lot of swelling. I just had the general fatigue and very stiff hands from time to time. So they had to do a lot of tests to be able to diagnose me with juvenile arthritis at first. And then that turned into RA. So I have been living with it since then, which makes about 12 years, I think. So that was quite life-changing for me, as I said, because I also had to switch career paths. That was one of the big reasons for it. It was not the only one, but it did affect my decision. So that is basically the summary of my journey with arthritis, although very, very short summary of it. So I did almost complete my degree in piano performance, and then I decided to go to the UK for my second degree, which I am now following a career path in.
Well, it's a huge change from music performance to physics.
Yeah, that's true. Well, luckily to me, I always liked science, so I always wanted to do something related to it, and that's why I'm saying arthritis was something that kind of helped me decide, but it was not the only thing that pushed me into that direction.
Sometimes it can open up a new avenue of trying something you wouldn't have done otherwise.
Yeah.
To me, they seem like polar opposites of music performance and
I always get that. I always get that. Yes, I always get that. How could you possibly do that? But as I said, for me, I was always into science, so it was nothing out of the ordinary. I actually had high school teachers that were pretty confused with my choice of music. They really were pushing me towards the science side of things. So
I guess in a twisted way, they're happy now, I suppose.
I definitely heard a comment from my previous chemistry teacher from high school, I knew it, or something like that.
Well. Okay, well, moving on from there. So as the main topic for today is sort of around your social life, or social lives in general when you have arthritis. I guess we'll start off quite simple. What impact has having arthritis had on your social life?
So I'm going to talk about this in the past a little bit, and then I'm going to switch to the present and tell you my perspective from today, what arthritis has as an impact on my life. So back then, I would say that when I was diagnosed, so there was very little awareness of what this disease is. So I actually had very little support, both from my family. My friends didn't know about all of this. And also the doctors did not really give you a manual of how you can live with this disease. It was just simply discharging you, oh yeah, you have to live with this, but no explanation. So I was really looking for sources online, and mostly all of them were not very positive. So I was quite in the state of denial about all of this. So as you can imagine, I was trying to hide it from people because I was feeling quite ashamed of it. And to be fair, like most of the reactions that I would get would be, oh, how can you have arthritis? You're so young. That does not make sense. So people will think of arthritis as an old person's disease, and they would not really realize I did not cause it. In my case, it was just like an autoimmune disorder. And so because of that, I really started hiding it. I did not receive a lot of support in my school, that is in my university. So people were even saying that I'm faking it, that I'm making excuses. There was a lot of like pressure around this whole like theme of my disease. So I just learned to like bury it inside and not tell anyone. So as you can imagine, like it was very hard for me to talk to people if I was not feeling well, because I always had to say, oh yeah, I have a fever, or I'm not okay today. I had to come up with something, that is really not, I could not say it's just my arthritis is bad, because nobody would take me seriously. They would be like, you're fine, you look fine. So,
was there anyone that you did tell sort of back then?
Well, yeah, there were a few friends of mine that knew, but I mean, some of them were supportive, but mostly it's like in these situations when people are unaware, they really don't know what to say. And I don't blame them. I mean, maybe in some occasions I also wouldn't know what to say if somebody comes to me with like a very harsh diagnosis. I don't know if I would react in the most sensible way for the person, and I don't know if I would be like super supportive in the way that they need me to be. But mostly I would say that I would ignore the subject and just pretend to be normal. That was my defense like in that time. But there were people knowing that I had issues, but they would not know what is the extent of how it's affecting me, to what extent it's affecting me, I mean. And that would make like this type of friendship like awkward, because I obviously cannot be open or honest about this thing. So this is how it impacted my social life per se. Back then I was not very physically obstructed to do anything in particular, because I did have to say in the first place that my arthritis affects mostly my hands.
Yeah.
So I have like finger and wrist arthritis. I don't have any issues with my other joints. So that's why I'm telling you that the mostly affected was like my performance. And also that would be relating my social life relating to performance or people that are related to the university there. So otherwise, I was not like affected in any other way. I could still work out. I was still going to the gym, but still had to be like mindful and careful about it.
So when you say have to be mindful and careful about it, what do you have to do differently now?
You mean in the gym, or?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I've this has been like a learning process for me as well. Like when it comes to the gym, because I'm actually more active right now than what I used to be, funnily. So I can say that I'm like, my active lifestyle is much better than when I was technically better when I was diagnosed with arthritis. So I feel like that has not had a great impact on my exercise level, for sure. Only if I've had a huge flare, I had to be super, super extremely careful about it. And I'm gonna like say it in more detail now. So I would say that one of the difficult things when it comes to like doing things differently with arthritis, especially physical activities, and I go dancing a lot, so I'm gonna include this into the social life.
Yeah. Things like activities and stuff that people do. Oh, that's social life isn't necessarily just going down the pub. Like, it could be if you have a member of any clubs, organizations, or do anything like a hobby of any type. If there's other people there, that's part of your social life.
Yes. yeah, so I'm just like trying to have a good picture of my social life so that everyone can imagine what I'm talking about. So I do a lot of dancing right now. So I did not do that much like when I was younger. So because I finally have time for it, and I've dedicated myself more into dancing right now rather than performing. So pretty much a bit ignored music for a while, but dancing is something that I really enjoy. So when it comes to like training, dancing, doing activities like hiking is something I also love to do. Is what we have to be mindful about as people with arthritis is that, like, for example, sometimes for me is quite difficult to distinguish between actually having a moment of fatigue and having to rest and being lazy. I know it sounds very funny, but I am a normal person. I also get lazy sometimes, and I wake up in the morning, I really don't want to go to the gym, and I have to be really honest with myself and say, like, okay, did I work out too much this week and just like feeling fatigued and my joints are exhausted, because this can happen.
Yeah.
Or am I actually being lazy and not want to go? This can also happen. So sometimes I have battled with myself to figure out, and like, okay, I'm gonna push myself to go to the gym, and it has turned quite badly and like feel super tired and exhausted after it, or I would get a little bit more swelling or something like this, or I would push myself and it would actually turn out that I was lazy that morning. so so these things are very difficult, and it will depend on the person to actually listen to their body and listen to like their disease, if that makes sense. So because we can have real flares, and I've had flares where I could go to the gym but I could lift only super lightweight and everything was feeling very yucky and swollen and painful, but I still went. So it's still like there, you can do a little bit, but it's just important to know where is your actual limit. Should you push yourself a bit? And it's just these types of things, that we should be careful and mindful about when it comes to arthritis.
Have you ever used it the other way around, or like, as you say, like sometimes you don't know if you're just being lazy or not? Have you ever used arthritis as an excuse? Just like, no, I can't, I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to tell them my arthritis is bad.
Oh, definitely I have. I have. I mean, I'm not feeling proud of it, but I have done that at least a few times.
It's a great get out of jail free card, though, if you don't want to go to someone's event or something. Obviously, don't use that too much, like the boy who cried wolf. But
No. That's not recommendable. And yeah, I also don't feel good after doing something like that. I feel super guilty if I do something like that.
I'm the same. I have a very guilty soul. I can't lie about things. So I'll just worry myself about it too much. So what have some of the biggest challenges been then? I mean, you've already kind of talked about, like, I mean, you had to change your entire like career and outlook, and or you moved to another country, I suppose, didn't you? With your sort of social circle then, that must have completely upheaved the whole thing.
Yeah, actually, it's for me, moving here was very positive. I should say that I'm so thankful that I chose to do this. I made this decision because the environment that I was at was so toxic for multiple reasons. And first of all, like I told you, there was no like real support. I had a very good doctor in the end. However, there is not like anything concerning well-being was not addressed. So I was actually struggling a lot with depression, and to the point where I stopped going to classes. I was like, I'm not doing anything. I was like feeling like a giant marshmallow, like not wanting to do anything. So for me, moving circles, moving environments was actually super positive. And when I came here, I was based in Birmingham first, so I had such an amazing experience at the hospital, and my doctor was amazing, and they put everything into place. I even got extensions on the exams in second year, so I could use more time, because the thing is that, like, as I said, like, I'm mostly affected in my hand, so sometimes it was a bit tough to write fast at 9 a.m. on an exam.
Yeah.
So I was really shocked that they would give me that privilege to have an extension because of my arthritis, and people were so supportive. And I was like, I did not expect that, because obviously I came from an environment where people were like, oh, you're faking it, this is not real, or you're just making excuses. And for me it was very positive to switch to like the environment here. And I had a very, very supportive friend circle here at Birmingham. So I'm very, very happy I made that decision. Well, switching careers was difficult for me. I would say that, as you mentioned, biggest challenges, I think, for me was just to accept that I now have this thing called arthritis and I have to live with it. It's like, someone introducing like a new pet to your house, and you have no choice, and it has to stay there and you have to take care of it. This is how it feels, like, why me? I did not choose this, but it was really life changing for me. It was a challenge to accept. I would admit I'm still struggling to accept it some days, and still feel bad about it, still think of like what my life would look like if I didn't have it. I think that's inevitable for everyone. I guess it's quite normal to have these feelings, but so for me, acceptance has been quite a challenge. But I think what has helped me is like try to leave room for all of these feelings and really feel them, and like just try to process them as much as I can, so they don't like just stay here in my system and make me a resentful person, if that makes sense. So yeah, this has been a big challenge, but I'm quite happy with my current like field. I've always loved physics, and I don't think I made a mistake. I felt so fulfilled at university, learning all about nature. It was amazing. I feel very like rewarded by the experience. So
Really nice to see how positive that outlook you have on it is.
but I must say that I don't want to sound like unrealistically positive or toxically positive, because I do have days where I don't feel like this. I think that's totally normal, and I think that we should accept these feelings as much as we like the happy ones. And I feel it has made me a more wholesome person to also give room to the bad side of arthritis, and not only close my eyes and say like, oh yeah, let's think positive, I don't think that's very helpful, at least not for me. So I must say I try to be positive, but sometimes it's quite impossible. But I'm still here, so.
Do you still find yourself, like when you go out with friends or anything like that, trying to overly like compensate and try and be more positive than you actually are, just to still hide it? Is that still something you do?
Sometimes I do. Sometimes, yeah. I would say that it could be difficult sometimes to explain why you're feeling down. For example, it's just that when you have a chronic disease, sometimes I don't know if this is something that people experience, but this is something that I experience. Sometimes I wake up and I start thinking about the future, and I'm like, what if this happens? Or what if things get worse? How am I going to do this? Or how am I going to do that? Or how many years of dancing do I have left? I don't know. Some of these things always like come in my mind once in a while. So it's hard to explain why you could be a bit more like moody or not happy all the time. So yeah, I may be sometimes trying to compensate, but usually you could see on my face if I'm not feeling well. I'm a bit transparent. That's something good and bad at the same time.
Yeah, that's a double-edged sword, that one. But that's an easy way, maybe in future, just get people to listen to this, and then you don't have to explain it.
Oh, that would be great. Just push the play button. Like, can you please listen to this, and I'll be back in half an hour.
Exactly. We're glad we could help.
Yeah. I do not somehow, but I do sometimes find myself, or up until recently, I used to feel super uncomfortable about my hands. That is like in social settings and especially dancing, because I do Latin dances mostly. So I use a lot of my arms, my hands. I usually dance with a partner. So I don't know if they squeeze me, like they squeeze my hands in the wrong way, it hurts. I have to tell them, please don't do that. That sometimes feels super uncomfortable. And I also like found myself like feeling uncomfortable about how my hands look. So I used to like try to hide them, or like feel uncomfortable when I have to like use my hands, because I use them a lot when I speak, unfortunately. And I could say that 9 times out of 10 people don't even realize that I have arthritis, but it's just in my head. It's like, oh no, people are going to think that, I don't know, I'm weird or there's something wrong with my hands. This has been difficult. So this is something that I tried to hide, but with time, you kind of learn to accept it a bit, I would say.
Has it ever stopped you from doing anything?
It was difficult for me to do like solo dancing and stuff like this, stuff that I wanted to do. Like it was hard for me to like overcome this. I just had to push myself to dance anyway, because I always thought that people are going to focus on my hands, which is really not true. But it was just such a mental block for me that, and I would say that sometimes it stopped me from playing piano in front of people now, because I always feel like, oh no, people are gonna realize I don't have perfect pianist hands anymore.
So that's what everyone thinks when they see people's hands.
Of course,
they haven't got a perfect pianist hand.
Of course they do. Come on.
So is that a worry of actually, even if you're like sitting in a cafe with just like a cup of coffee or something, would you be worried about it then?
Yeah, I would, because you see, like I know this sounds completely ridiculous, and I apologize in advance, but I used to have like very good looking hands in my head, or this is what also people were saying to me. They were like, I had long fingers. I still have long fingers, but they're quite swollen. So they were like long fingers, the pianist hands, like I was like wearing rings. I really enjoyed doing that. So it was something that it was very pleasurable to me. But now I cannot do that. I cannot wear that much jewelry at the moment. I mean, I can, but it's like a bit like weird to do it. I have to always use adjustable rings. And it does not look in my eyes so good as it used to. So yes, in my head, I would. It definitely did affect my self-esteem. So because I would over focus on it, but obviously people really don't care about it. I have proven it, because most people tell me I wouldn't have seen it if you didn't tell me. And I'm thinking, why did I tell you?
Well, it's good to be open. It's good to be, the more people know, the better they can kind of sort of respond to it, I suppose.
Yeah. Even one of my friends once showed me, like, look, my finger is a bit like tilted because of writing. And I was so happy that she did that, because she did not find it weird that I have a bit of like weird fingers,
Everyone's got something weird about them. So like everyone always will have that thing, whether it be arthritis or not. There's always that thing people focus on themselves like it's the most horrible thing in the world that everyone else would recoil from, when in fact no one's probably ever going to notice.
Exactly. That's so true. Like, and I have, as I said, I have proven it to myself, and it's still lingering sometimes in my mind, but it's so true, because people have given me completely different feedback from what I thought they would think about this.
Well, that's good to hear then. That's good. Of course. One other thing I wanted to ask about as well is like, what about like when you sort of like travel or any holidays or anything like that? Are they things that are now different because of your arthritis?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. Well, I would say that sometimes traveling for long hours can be a bit daunting because that would usually make me more swollen,
Mm.
and always have to be mindful. Like if I'm in a plane for more than 4 hours, I would probably need to go around, like to stand up and like have a little walk because of the water retention that would actually increase my swelling. So I think the last time I traveled back home, I had such a bad swelling in my hands for a few days. It was so uncomfortable, but that's all because of air pressure and everything related to going up into such high altitude in the plane. So that can definitely make an effect in someone like me. I think that there are people who are more asymptomatic. I would say if
Mm.
they've found out their medication and it's working for them. I'm not one of those people yet. So for me, it's still a bit like I'm still dependent on weather to some extent
Yeah.
and like you say the traveling uh, regime. So this would be something that affects me. So I would also need to stretch more. I would say if I'm traveling like in a train or in a bus for many, many hours, I would definitely need to stretch because I would just feel stiff. I'm
Yeah.
sure that normal people do like feel that, but I feel that maybe in our case it might be a bit more than the normal.
Almost certainly. Yeah.
Yes, I definitely recommend loads of stretching after something like this.
There was a guy who came to some of our online groups at one point. He was telling me about when cause he used to go, I think him and his wife would go with several other couples and they would all go on holiday together. And so as his arthritis got worse, he had to change how he would behave on holiday. And that's to eventually come out and tell them all like, I'm going to disappear for like 2 hours every few hours because I need to go back and rest so that
Yeah.
he can then go out and do other things with them. So like obviously I came up with a list of like, I want to do this and this. Can we do them later on and not now so I can have a rest? Is that something you've had to do or anything like that?
Yeah, wow, like that's very interesting to hear. Not actually have to do it on this extent. So on my end, I would say that, as I told you, usually I'm pretty active. So I've managed to survive quite a long tours around cities as a tourist and stuff like this. So I usually don't feel dreaded by that, but I would definitely feel quite tired at the end of the day. So I would definitely need a good rest after like an activity like this. So sometimes I would say that probably my feet will feel a bit more sore than normal. So I would either have to like soak them in water just to do something because I like my hands are mostly affected, but I do have some small joints in my toes that are also affected a bit. So it's just a lot of walking can have this effect as well. So I
Yeah.
would definitely have to be mindful of resting. Not really scheduling a rest. Maybe I should try to do that really. Like next time, maybe I should try to do that. But I would definitely have to also like try to listen to my body and like take a break if it's needed.
Excellent. So one last question for you and then I'll let you go. So what advice would you give to someone who's like just getting to grip with how to balance their arthritis and social life?
Oh, yeah. So I think that we should not reduce ourselves to arthritis. What I mean by that is like your identity is not arthritis. So arthritis is just only one part of ourselves, which we kind of need to tolerate. Like I told you, the crazy pet that somebody forced into my house. But it's not all I am. And I think if we focus ourselves too much on it, it can get exhausting both for us and also the people around us because imagine like you go and like to see your friend and you're having a chat at the cafe and you start like, oh, my arthritis this, my arthritis this, and like everything is like
Mm.
turned into a chat about your disease, which sometimes is needed but should not be always like that. So try to focus on who you really are as a person and try to adapt arthritis into it, not the vice versa. Not
Yeah.
like try to adapt yourself to arthritis, like So what that means is sometimes there will be situations in which you can actually come out of your comfort zone, and some situation which it's not very smart to do that. So it's just about balancing these things, is like the wisdom of learning how to live with this condition but also enjoying your life. So I've had great experience in trying to push myself to dance, as I told you, and also pushing myself into the gym has always given me like a great feeling of well-being, has not given me like a worsened condition of this, but I always had to push myself a bit more and not think of myself as a person with arthritis. I just thought of myself as who I am. So that's, I think, the biggest advice I could give. So again, like not to forget that you have this and be mindful of it. I'm not saying we should ignore it, but just don't reduce yourself to that disease.
Excellent. Very well said. Thank you very much, Vanya. That's been brilliant.
Thank you so much for having me again. I really enjoyed it.
Good. Me too. So for anyone else who wants to follow up on any more of our information or some of the stuff we've talked about, we do have a few resources, like stuff about the groups as well. If you want to learn about those or when they are, it's all available on our website, which is at www.arthritisaction.org.uk. And you could also send us an email, or if you have any questions, or if you want to get in touch about anything at all, you can send that to podcast@arthritisaction.org.uk. So brilliant. Thank you very much, Vanya.
No problem. Bye.
Bye.